Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Writing Visual Studio Extensions with Matt. That's me. And we've got James. No, it's not James today. Who do we have with us? John.
I'm backup James. I am John. Yep.
Well, good to see you, my friend.
Yeah. It's always great on a Friday. It's a great way to end the day. And yep.
Yeah, with a little beverage there and some.
So I have to clarify. This is Hop from Lagunitas, who mostly makes beer, but Hoppy Refresher is no alcohol, and apparently they say 0 calories and 0 sugar, 0 everything, except it has vitamin D and it tastes good. So
0 sugar. Okay.
It has 0 sugar.
Okay. Well, you know,
it's less boring than water.
I think it's we let the people decide if they believe that is a non-alcoholic beverage. It's not like we encourage people not to drink alcohol during the show. I think that's a great idea.
It's allowed.
It's allowed. Man, we had I just looked at the comments that we have. It's like man, people are from all over the world today, like Brazil. We got like what else we got? Yeah,
Scotland.
I think, and Cynthia is in Scotland too. I think. Oh yeah, fellow Scotland.
Yeah.
I've been to Scotland a few times. That's just a wonderful place. And we got Jan and Stephen from Down Under, and I think Jan
Californian.
Okay, I think Jan is maybe Melbourne, and Stephen there's Adelaide. Adelaide, I think Adelaide is wine country, isn't it? I feel like I've had a lot of wine from red wine in particular.
Oh wow!
But is that the Shiraz country? Is that?
Oh yeah, those are always confusing. The different wine varietals that change their name just based on what part of the world they're from.
Oh man, I used to be in wine. Like when I was in high school, I had a wine business. We would like import wine. I lived in Denmark at the time, so we would import wine from like Mediterranean, like Spain, Italy, and stuff, and sell it to like gas stations and supermarkets, you know. And so I used to be like knowing all these things, and I forgot all of it. It's like,
wait, you said you worked with that, or you worked at a place that did that?
It was me and a buddy of mine. We had like it was our little business.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun. It was good times, man. It was 20 years ago, and yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So I think like Shiraz is basically a different way of saying Syrah.
Yeah.
And Shiraz is actually a city in Iran where I think maybe it came from, or it was cultivated there, that grape, back when it was allowed to do that in that country.
Yeah.
And I visited that town, that city, like in 2009.
Oh wow!
I was a tourist in Iran. That was exciting.
Yeah. I've done some, like there's a wine country kind of near us. It's Temecula, which is the San Diego or the LA, San Diego kind of Southern California. But then of course up San Francisco area, there's some amazing, wine country up there and stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like how we just like went straight and talked about alcohol. This show is about.
You notice I tried to guide us in the right direction. I put the topic in the banner there.
Yes. Well, I don't see you though. I don't see the screen.
Oh.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
when I look down like this, I have like an iPad here. This is how high tech this is. Here's an iPad, and here I have.
Oh wow.
Because if I run the browser with the studio and the camera feed, it slows down my machine. It takes like 30% of my CPU, not 30, but 20, which I kind of need for doing all my Visual Studio stuff. So I have this thing, and then I plug in this so that no sound comes out, because the studio doesn't allow me to do volume 0 on the iPad.
Wow.
It's weird. And then so to avoid feedback, I kind of just short circuit it like that. So that's how high tech we are here. Okay, John, I know today is a topic that is near and dear to your heart. Is that right?
Is it dynamically adding menu commands?
Yeah, because this is it's like a hidden feature, and you don't see Visual Studio do this a lot. You don't see dynamic menu commands, toolbar menu items, and stuff like that. Usually they're fixed, they're static, right? They're declared
Yeah.
statically, and then as we saw last week, where James were here, we looked at, well, how can we make them visible and invisible based on different context you're in, right? So we know how to like show and hide commands, but like generating them on the fly programmatically, because they might be driven from a database or a web query or whatever it might be. That is what
some more advanced logic where you don't just want to show and hide things.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so in preparation for this show, I wrote an extension and I released it because I was done with it and proud of it, and one that I've been wanting to write for years, and I never knew how to write it. And then I saw what was done. Who was this? Was it Steven or? Oh my, no, I completely forget. Well, someone on the community toolkit updated the way we do theming of tool windows and stuff, so that you can easily write tool windows that just adhere to whatever theme Visual Studio uses without doing any code. It just happens automatically.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, this is kind of holy grail type territory, and and so he added in like a selector of what theme, so you can like switch themes. I'm like, how do you do that? And he did something really, really clever. He basically generated a VS settings file and imported it. That settings file, if you export all your settings from Visual Studio, you get like a big XML file with all a bunch of things.
Yeah.
But you can actually export just a single setting and import just a single setting. And so he would create one of these XML files with just one single setting, which was which theme to apply. And he would just call the import command and pass it that file, and boom. So it's like, oh.
And you can do that dynamically while you're running?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Whoa.
So
that's pretty slick.
Let me just show you. Just let me see my screen here. I'll very briefly show what this extension does.
Okay.
So up on tools, it lists all the themes, and you can select a theme like blue or the dark theme. And you can see here now it applies. It imports that settings file, and it applies it, and there we go.
That's
so that's in all its glory. That's what we're looking at. So, and so that list of themes were dynamically created based on the installed themes that you have in Visual Studio. So I thought we should do that.
Oh, today. I get it. Yeah.
You get it now, John?
I finally get it. Yeah. So I've mostly used those things. Well, I mean, how it's putting these things together, right? It's looking at the different themes you've got already available, and then it's importing and exporting. I've used this import export mostly for like demo mode sort of setup things in the past.
Yeah. It's like if you go up here and you say import export settings.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. That's also where you reset settings. A lot of people don't know that, because why would they? It's called import export. But that's how you go to like factory defaults, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we want to do is that we want to create a flyout menu with a bunch of with all the installed themes showing up. So, and of course, as I said, I've cheated and prepared in advance. So let's see here. I'm just going to be completely blatant here and just copy paste. There we go. So that means that we need to update these here things. So what am I doing? I'm adding a few groups. I feel like something here is wrong. Why is that? The parent here is the same. Something is wrong. Oh, no, hang on. I'm going to copy in a menu. Okay, just bear with me, everybody. Bear with me. So let's see here. What am I going to do? I'm going to take a menu. Let's do that first. And this menu, we're going to put into tools and then options group. So tools and the options group is down here. Or if I hover, I can see it here. Options, right? It shows up down here.
Okay.
So that's our options group. And I figured out that priority 250, hex 250 there, puts it between customize and options. All right. So
just trial and error?
Yeah, that's the only way I know of. And then, and I'm going to just copy this in again, a button here. We're going to just replace the, there we go. So I have a button here. And the thing about this button, so here it's under theme list group. Theme list group. So actually I don't need this. Oh no, I do this. Anyway, theme list group. So I put my button in a group. Now this theme list group is located on the menu. So what this means is that theme, and then this is the list group. That's where the list is, where all these different themes show up. Okay. So I create one button. So here's how it works. In order for you to create dynamic buttons, you need one button. You need one statically declared button, and that's what we're doing here. So I'm saying dynamic item start, okay, as a command flag on this. That basically is what enables you to spawn kind of clones of this one in as many times as you want, hosted under the same UI, in the same group, same location. And then we're going to change the dynamic visibility. We're going to say text changes are allowed. So if you haven't tried this one yet, it's a command flag that allows you programmatically to update the text or the name of the command, right? The text of the command. And we're going to use this one to host the first theme, okay? So that's why we call it first theme. So now we just have to update down here, all this jazz.
Is there an example? Are there already in Visual Studio? Are there any examples of this being used, or is this only used in like, extensions people in the community are creating? I can't. This is a really cool feature, but I can't think offhand of a dynamic menu like this.
No, here, files, recent files.
Oh, okay.
Recent projects. This is the same thing.
Yep. Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
And we have under tool, under window and apply window layout. This is also a dynamic. And see, they actually applied key bindings to these two, which is kind of cool. But this is dynamic. You can add or remove from this list by going in here and change it, right? So that's another example of something dynamic. Here's one. This list here is dynamic. It changes length. If I had 2017 installed, it would list 2017 on here. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That's
or if
helpful.
it was a web project, you have all the different browsers that you've installed as targets and so on. All right. So far, so good, eh?
Yep.
Let's see here while it compiles. Any questions? I'm looking through here. What's written on your mug? Let's see here. Can you see this? So for those of you who lived through the Internet Explorer 6 days, you should know what that means.
I think people need to be more fair to CSS now, because with all the new like grids and flex grids and flexbox and all that stuff, you don't have to deal with that really anymore. But.
Yeah, right. I forgot. I updated the list of, so it's called first theme is what we called it. And then so whenever I do changes to the VSCT file, which is this XML file here, I just like to see that everything is placed correctly before I proceed. And the only way to see if you do it right is through actually running it. So there's that. CSS even has variables now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Actually, the V6 cookbook, v6cookbook.com uses variables. Does it use Sass? I don't think it even does. I'm like, yeah, why even bother these things?
You don't need to use Sass as much anymore. I mean, with variables and there's support for themes like prefers color mode or whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah. Which I do have. V6cookbook.com supports dark theme. Yeah, of course. I mean, How can you write in a website today without doing that? So you can see here, themes 2. I named it themes 2 so I could tell the difference. This is my other extension, right, that actually now runs in the experimental instance. But this is the new one that we're doing right now. Themes 2, the sequel.
Just one thing with your loading there that you've got, that button text.
Uh-huh.
I love that it says loading and not something like no items found.
Yes.
I have run into this like as a worst practice I've seen on several websites where they'll say, like, say for instance, you go to a bank and it'll say like the default item is $0 or something, you know, like, or nothing found, or you have no items in your cart. And then they wait and then they update it. That's a bad practice, because if it takes a long time to load or the thing fails, it's showing me I have $0 in the bank, which I don't like seeing. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, that would be horrible if you realized, or if you saw $0.
Exactly. I see that on a lot of websites. It's terrible.
Yeah. You need like a good like loading message or indication that, you know, something is coming.
Yep.
Okay. So my command, so it's disabled by default, right? That's why it was disabled. We saw that. And now let's take a look at how we're going to do this command. Okay. So when we want to add dynamic commands, so there's a couple of things I have to do here. One is I need to get my list of themes, right? And so, as I said, I I prepared, right? So I actually have the code that just gets me the themes and all that sort of stuff. So we don't have to look at themes because that's not the topic of this particular episode. So I'm going to just take a couple of files and drop in here. And I should probably update the dynamic command sample and dynamic command sample. And of course, we can look at this. The code of this is all on GitHub. It's should be in the YouTube description box. Okay, so I now have the ability to call into and get the list of commands. Okay, so what I want to do, of themes, not of commands. But what I want to do is that in order for me to check whether, or to generate that, so on what event do I generate the list of commands? Well, there's kind of only one natural place for us to do it, and that is on before query status. So most of you probably know that one. And before query status is basically run when the menu is becoming visible. And in this case, it happens when the tools menu here is loaded like that. Okay. So when I click the tools here, that's when before query status is run. So that's when I want to create those dynamic commands. But when I do that, like every time I go up to tools here, it will actually rerun the before query status. And so I will create duplicates, right? And so I have to make sure that I only execute my code one time. So what I'll do is, so let's actually just go in here and do, let's overwrite before query status. Yep. So I'm using the toolkit, but the same thing applies if you're not using the community toolkit. It's kind of similar things. Everything still applies. What I'm going to do is that all those commands that I'm going to create on before query status, I'm going to put into a list here. Because then I can do this. Then I can say, hey, if there's any commands, just return, don't do anything. Okay. So then I need to get myself some themes. So now it's the first time before query status hits. So there's nothing inside my list here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my themes. And then I'm going to iterate over the themes. Here we go, and call setup command. Whoop. Oh, sorry. It's just a method to set that up. But I forgot I need to get the older command target. The menu service. There we go. Menu service. So I'm going to grab the menu service. That's the service you need to create new ones. And let's just update this. So here's what's going on. I'm getting my list of themes from my theme store, which is one of the files I just copied in. I'm just gonna let's return to this one. So let's ignore this one for now. I'm then gonna go in and iterate over the themes, and look what I'm doing here. I'm creating a new command ID based on my first theme, which was the button that I defined out here. Okay. So I take the ID of first theme, which is hex 101, and then I'm adding I, and I is something that I increment, right? So I added plus I incremented right here. So that means I generate a new ID for each. And remember, if there is a command ID conflict, it throws an exception, right? So make sure that there is not a conflict. And the way you can ensure that is, for instance, that this is the last. You pick a number where, higher than 100 higher than this will not conflict with any other hard-coded values you may have here from other commands. So you can say, okay, what is the absolute maximum that anyone could ever have installed of like the amount of themes? So let's say that's 100, or let's say it's 1,000. Like that's probably the theoretical limit. Like even like, of course you can have more, I guess, but so just make sure that those are kind of blocked off, right?
Quick question for you. You're doing themes.skip1. It's skipping the first theme when it does that iteration then?
Yeah.
Is that because that's the default theme or?
No, it's here. It's because of this. So here's what I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
So the before query status. Okay, so I already have a command. The command that I define here, right? That thing is already being wired up here by using this attribute.
Right.
It says the package IDs.first theme command should be wired up. And on the base class, that is now the command property right here. So I'm basically saying, okay, for the command itself, the one that we generated right here, take the first of my themes and make that the thing. Okay.
That makes sense. And then the following ones, you create them.
And I set it up here. So I say enable invisible is true. And I make the text of the command equals the theme's name. And whether or not it's checked, because check this out. See how there is like a check mark of the one that's checked, right? So I can control whether it's checked or not based on whether is it the current theme. And then I'm just storing the GUID of the theme here in a property bag. So a command has a property bag. I could probably store the theme object itself, but I'm just thinking the GUID is fine, because I'm going to need that once I apply the theme, once you click the command, which we haven't looked at yet. So basically what I'm saying is, for all the themes, take the first one and apply it to the static button that I declared. And then take all the other themes and run through them and dynamically create new commands, and add them.
That makes sense.
Okay. Swell. So now it's time to do our. But hang on. Do we have any questions? Questions from the audience? Why can't I get all the cool VS Code tools? Okay, that's a different one. Do you see anyone? Someone will say, "Will it be added?" I'm not sure what they're referring to.
Yeah, some of those were just as you were coding. That was about whether it be added to the list or something.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm in my execute method, right? So see here. So just my command in general is using the execute. So this is override. Look at this. Expected override. So the base class has an execute method that's automatically applied to this first one that we set up, because it's already hooked up for that one. But then for the new ones that I dynamically create, I'm also calling that very same execute method, like right here. So no matter which one is being clicked on, invoked, this particular method will run. Okay. So here's what I'm doing. I'm basically saying, okay, give me the Ola menu command and then retrieve its GUID property. Okay. So if it contains the GUID, and then get the GUID, and then call my theme store here and set active theme async, and just fire and forget, right? Just go ahead and do that on the next time the UI thread is available, and go through, and then we go through all the commands that we've created and uncheck them, saying, hey, they shouldn't be active, they shouldn't be checked, and then we only check the one that was clicked. So that's how that check mark moves to the one that we've got clicked.
So there was one question. Let me try and answer it and see if I am paying enough attention. But so the question, how did it know where to place the dynamically created commands? And that's because it's doing those in reference to the first one where you said basically like start list or whatever in the command, the command definition, where it basically said begin.
Well, that's a good question. So I don't know if there's a relationship between the initial statically declared command and the location of the dynamic. Like, do they have to be the same one? Because if you look at this command ID that I'm generating here, mm-hmm. I give it the group. The group determines where it's located, right? So could I give it a different group? Like, could I put it somewhere else? I'm guessing yes, but I don't know. I've never tried it, but I would assume so. It would be fun to try, easy to try. If we got time, we could try. So anyway, that makes sense. What else will we have here? Will it be? I thought there was a question.
So there's one here, Brave Cobra. It's not going to update if extra themes are installed.
Well, extra themes are installed as an extension, and for an extension to take effect, you need to restart Visual Studio. So you're right, but not. So it's true, but not quite, right? No, when Visual Studio is closed when you install an extension. Visual Studio has to be closed for it. So in that regard, you're right. It does not update because it's closed. So,
Yeah. Okay.
But then when Visual Studio starts back up, that new theme will be showing in that list. So, okay. So running before query status. John, will this work?
I'm sure because you're asking me, the answer is no, because of some reason. So the thing that's been on my mind here is I'm still piecing the parts together here, but there's this underbar commands it's the list of commands. And when you call setup command, I'm thinking about the wire up of that execute. Where are we adding in? Where are we wiring up the execute for each of the new ones that we add in?
For each of the new ones, we're wiring it in here. We create a Ola command, and it takes execute as the first parameter. It takes an action as the first parameter.
Okay. Well, I'm still going to say no, it won't work because you wouldn't have asked me if it would work.
That is true. That is true. So maybe there's someone watching right now that dare tell me or guess why this won't work.
Win a fabulous prize.
Mads
will count to 100 in Danish for you.
What is that? Say it again.
That's the prize. You're going to count to 100 in Danish.
Oh my God. Yeah. I do remember how to do that. So the before query status, that's sort of like all commands have this concept. All commands in Visual Studio. So if you're going back to like how commands are sort of under the hood, what their like base form is, it's an IOLA command target, which has only two methods. It has an execute method and it has a query status method. And so that's what we're dealing with here. So query status is just Visual Studio's way of asking, hey, are you supported? Should you be visible? What are your characteristics? And it asks before it becomes visible. So that's what I was saying here. So this code needs to be able to run by the time someone clicks the tools menu right here. If that helps. If anyone can maybe then guess why this doesn't work. It has to do with the before query status. Because if I run this right now, when will before query status be executed? Actually, let's just run it.
Yeah.
Let's just run it. Because it very well illustrates the point. And so while people are guessing why this won't work, known commands.
Okay. It won't work because you have a syntax error.
It's actually not a syntax. I just need to update. So what I did was that on this, that's Open File Explorer. I actually need to get the Community Toolkit SDK, and I'm just going to update it to the latest. Which I can just do. It takes forever. So I'm basically what I'm doing is that the Community Toolkit, the CI build, the NuGet server, I want the latest for this particular one. So, and what I did do was, where is that here? What I did do was that I did put NuGet.config. You see here in the repo root.
Yep.
Next to the solution file. So it knows how to get the latest. And so now that I've done that, I've updated to the latest. I should no longer have an issue. Where was that? No, was it in here? See? Boom.
So there is a question. Are you going to be publishing this after you create it?
I already did.
Well, so I was hoping that would answer this question. How do I publish an extension? I know you've answered this question in the past on the show, but
it's right here. Theme switcher.
Yeah.
And it has a here. This is the GitHub. Whoop. This is the GitHub's. Whoop.
So to answer this person's question, how do I publish an extension? Probably best it's in the docs. There's walkthroughs on that.
Yeah, and I've shown it like multiple times. So we won't go through that today.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so now we have our thing running. We have our themes 2. Now what's going to happen when I move my mouse down to themes 2 and expand that? Nothing. The same thing. I can't click it. I can, it's disabled. There's nothing I can do. Okay. So the reason that happened is because this entire thing relies on before query that is running. It's what's going to make the command set that says loading ... It's what's going to turn that into a name of a theme, and it's what's going to create the additional commands. So, but before query status is not running until my package is loaded. Did anyone guess that?
Nobody guessed that.
Wow. So let's go to my package class. Hey, and check this out. Instead of initializing commands like this, that we've always done, here's a new thing in the toolkit. You just say, what do you call it? Register commands async. Right? I thought so. I did base. There we go. Boom. So now it will just automatically figure out all the commands in my package, in my DLL, that is decorated, all classes decorated with a command attribute, and call initialize on them. That is pretty sweet. Pretty sweet, I will say. Now let's do a auto load. We're just going to auto load here on no solution. No solution basically means when Visual Studio starts up and everything has, and if you open as part of Visual Studio startup, if that needs to load a solution, like because you clicked an SLN file or whatever, then the no solution UI context now the UI context happens immediately as it comes up, but no extensions will be loaded till after the solution is opened up. Which is why we call loading, because you could potentially get in a situation where people will expand the menu before we have our extension has initialized, right? So let's see if we can do that real quick. So as soon as this come up, I will hit it. Themes 2, it says loading. Okay. While extensions are loading. Okay, extensions are done loading. So now, boom. See that? That is beautiful. So now we have a fully functioning extension. This went a lot faster than I thought.
Maybe it needs to play some sound or something.
And Cynthia says, "Oh, nice bit of reflection." Yeah, totally, absolutely. So it was a pull request to the toolkit, and so I'm really, this toolkit is just getting better and better. Because I need to publish a new one, a new version to official NuGet instead of the and then update the templates. I'll do that next week. I've been very busy this week, so I haven't been able to do it. So that's it in all its essence. The thing is that it's such a powerful concept, but then when you look at it, it's really, really simple when you follow the rules. The rules are maybe hard to understand or difficult to get right. So what's interesting is that these ones that you create, they kind of inherit from the other one, from the statically declared one. So if your statically declared one was, let's say here, default, like if we make any changes to any of this, or if we make it default, if we make the first command like, so here, to enable equals false, let's say, then all of these down here will also be enabled equals false. So they're kind of joined it somehow.
Yeah. There's a question from Aiden, if there are restrictions on making an HTTP call during the loading. From my understanding, from what I heard, it's there wouldn't be, right? It's an async thing, and you can do whatever. I mean, you obviously have to not like lock things up, but it's being done in the background, right? So
it's being done in the background. Exactly. So this will work just fine. You can do an HTTP call. The only thing is that if you do an HTTP call from in here, any long running task is highly not encouraged. So what you would want to do if you wanted to make an HTTP call in your before query status is that you want to do that asynchronously, so that you return from before query status immediately. Because otherwise, you click the tools menu and nothing happens until your HTTP call comes back, and then it shows up. So that's gonna ruin it for everybody. So, but if you do it like a fire it off into a background thread, do your thing there, and then when it's ready, then you can go ahead, right?
I had assumed that this would require async just by default anyways. I guess this is something where it's going to be fast enough, but I would think that would be kind of the best practice always.
Yeah, that's always usually always. Not always. There are times when it's like either it doesn't matter or where it's like a bad idea because you do unnecessarily.
Yeah, that's true.
Switching between threads. But you could say here, what if you do on load here when the package loads, you could also just build up your, do your HTTP calls here. Like here's where you start your async call. Like, so you return immediately from initialize async on your package. And, you start a new thread and you do your long running background task, like calling the web for, whatever. And then you store that somewhere. Let's say you store it in a static variable. Okay. You can then access that static variable from inside before query status to see whether or not it has been set. And so you basically just return until it's been set. So it'll just say loading until your background thread comes back, sets that static variable, and the next time they click tools, you're good to go. Right. The only problem with that is, depending on how often people are gonna execute your before query status, you're then gonna have to do work up front that you don't really need. And so that means that if you do the long running task, you start it from within your package class. That means that every single instance of Visual Studio that someone opens, your code will run. Whether they're gonna actually ever hit any code path that will show them your dynamic menus, right? And so we always wanna initialize our stuff, and we always wanna execute our code as late as we possibly can in Visual Studio. We don't want to load anything in advance if we can avoid it.
It would seem like too, you could do, I don't know if this would be smart, but if you wanted to like optimize for this, you could, as it's loading, it could keep updating that list.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it do that? Does it? I'm trying to think through your code that does that loading. If those were, you know what I mean? If those were long running, does it kind of pop them into place one at a time, or does it wait and show the whole thing?
The whole thing.
Okay. But you could do that asynchronously where you keep updating or in chunks or something.
Yeah, but then what you would end up having is like you would go up here to tools, you would come down to themes, and you would have like 3. And then the next time you come in and say, oh, now there's 12. And then the next time you come in, oh, there's 25. And if that's fine with your whatever your scenario is, then by all means do that.
There's a question from Jan, which is a perceptive question. Why is your installed extension picking up more themes than the one you're writing now? I noticed that too. Yeah.
So my installed extension that's because one is running in the experimental instance. And one is not. So I have more themes installed on my regular instance of Visual Studio, the one you're looking at right now. Yeah. I have more themes installed here than I do in my experimental instance.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so let's look at Aiden here. Thinking about a JSON list of repos that could be used with the My Company extension. Exactly. I think that's how it came up most recently was when we did the My Company 2.0, when we did an update of that. It's like, yeah, just do a list of that. The only thing I haven't been able to figure out is how to do icons. But it's got to be possible. There's some weird override you probably have to do for that, but it might be possible. But you see here, if we look at the command, I can set text, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not like an icon. So that's the only thing where I don't know how to do it, but there might be a way. I don't know. But it looks like it's not through this API. It would be through some other.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be a good candidate for this. Yeah, for sure. And if I had given let's actually try this because now I'm kind of curious. But if I had been here and I had given, let's give this icon is moniker. Let's give this an icon. What should we give it? Test team, that one. So now they should all get that. But you see here, when you have check marks like this, it doesn't work so well. When you also have an icon and a check. Yeah. So it depends on your scenario. Like this one has check marks, but maybe your scenario does not require check marks, and then you can look into how to do the icons. But now I think themes 2. Yeah. See, now it has that icon.
Yeah.
And so the way so it's actually, this is kind of weird. So this is, see how it's kind of yellow or whatever? Mm-hmm. That is its suppressed state. So that's the check mark, right? So we replace basically the check mark itself with the image, but it still has that kind of button pressed if it's like the active one.
Yep.
And so it gets like that background. So it's kind of just weird.
So Cynthia saying, want to query info from a project on the project menu pop up to populate submenu of items for the project. So I think she's saying that's an idea for like a dynamic menu to query info on the project and then dynamically like have a sub menu from that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, you can right click and say apply to, and then you can select all the files with a certain file extension. So which one do you want to apply this to? Okay, click that one.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, I assume that's what Cynthia means. Isn't it image moniker? Jan asks. And I said icon. Yeah, it's an image moniker. Yep, that's right. Oh, and Cynthia has some ideas. Maybe that was plural. She just gave us one. Yeah, so you can do really cool things. So it's funny when I've talked to the Visual Studio team about these things in the past, they've always been, like, be careful with that, because you're going to add like 50 new commands. Like, we already have a lot, so we don't want to put too much stress on the system. I'm like, okay, what is 50 out of 4,000 or whatever? Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's okay, but they're kind of just be careful or be considerate, I think. And the problem is, of course, if you add a command, that's actually a really good point. So if you add a command, in this case, to instead here, I put it in a menu, right? The theme list group here. It's in the. But what if I put this command in an existing, like a predefined place, like I put the command directly in here underneath where it says SQL Server, right here. Mm-hmm. Well, the problem is, if it's not my own group that I added to, that means that other people might add things to as well. And because I dynamically create IDs, they might conflict because I don't control the GUID, right? I don't control the location.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something to be. So maybe the guidance here is, when you do dynamic generated stuff, always put your commands in your own group. There you have it, folks.
That makes sense.
We should have like a little I don't know, streamer about like rule.
Oh,
I don't know.
I'm on it. Well,
I think
wait,
that's
this
the
is
first.
Always here. There's one setup which is a good idea, but I think we need one with an actual rule. I could do a ruler.
No, that's not the ruler.
A law. Oh, it's kind of like a law.
Yeah, but law. So the way I look at laws is like a law is basically guidance for people that don't know how to think. Mm-hmm. So if you put that in mind, it's like, okay, that means you can go. You don't have to abide by the law if you know something, if you know it's okay somehow, right? So I think law is good here in this case. It means only break it if you know what you're doing.
Okay. So wait, I need you to repeat that back to me so I can type it in. We can do this right. So only create a dynamic list in a group.
In a GUID you control, or in a group you control.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a GUID you control.
I just got like super duper thirsty. I have to go get some water. Can you entertain people?
Yeah, all right. So let's see if there's new comments. All right. A MADS mandate. Yeah, okay. That's definitely something we can talk about there. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. There's the MADS mandate. People like that. There is also, as Jan pointed out, we already have pro tip. So
yes, we could just say it's a tip. That's right. Yeah. I do feel like this is one of those things where it's not so much a tip, because the consequence of getting this wrong is that you crash and it's not apparent what the problem is. Yeah. Like, because it might not have started with your extension. So imagine you install your extension, everything is hunky-dory, the user loves it and uses it for 10 years. And then they install another extension that has nothing to do with dynamically generated menus, but happen to put a menu in the same group. And now everyone thinks it's the new menu that caused the problem, when in fact it was your dynamically generated menu that was the issue.
That makes sense.
So who's to blame? You are. But it's not obvious, right? How are you even going to find out that this was the problem? Like, this is impossible to ever troubleshoot.
That's a bigger picture question, and I'm sure you've probably covered this on others before. But how how do you like profile, like there's both this like I'm crashing other people or I'm screwing up other people's things, but then I was thinking this also when we're talking about like the async loading and you're like doing bad things in your extension that are going to slow down the other, you know what I mean? Is there a good like profiling or test, you know what I mean? Like how can I find that stuff? Are there analyzers that will help me?
Yeah, there are analyzers for like general things, but like discovering conflicts between your extension and others, that does not exist. But I think like we can do like there are measures we can take to kind of mitigate or at least reduce the chances of conflicts to happen. So one of them is use your own groups. Don't use other people's groups and menus, right? Well, not menus. You have to use those, but so that's one thing. And I would say even that is like I do that all the time, right? Where I put a button in, like, let's say somewhere in here. So open in Visual Studio Code, that's my extension down here. And I just put that in, right? I just put that in an existing group in the context menu right there. If someone else, that means I'm using the same GUID as these 3 other commands are using. So if someone else comes in and uses the same ID integer that I am and puts it in here, it's going to explode. So that's why I was like, if you want to be absolutely sure, you put things in your own groups. Then there can be no conflict. But I think that also like sometimes looks ugly. And so you don't want to do that. But I've never heard of a conflict based on these things. That doesn't mean they don't exist. I think there's a bigger chance that people just don't know what caused them. And so that's why no one has ever complained, because how will you ever find this out? Like, you know, when you do this, whether it exists, the conflict will exist between this extension of yours and the other extensions that you've got installed on your particular machine. But that is a unique combination of extensions that's unique to you. So once you give it to someone else, they download on the marketplace, you have no idea what other extensions they've got and how they can conflict. And not just other extensions. It could be like, for instance, I don't have the C++ workload installed.
Yeah.
But that comes with new commands. So if you have C++, so those are built-in commands and menus and groups, and those different components might expose commands with the same IDs, right? So, but I think it's like one of those very rarely occurring things. I've never heard about it, but if you want to be,
pedantic or whatever.
I would say all else equal. Like if you're fine with having your own group and you don't feel like it hurts your user experience or whatever, if it's the same, everything else, all else equal, go with your own group.
I guess this reminds me again of why report a problem is so important. Like if you hit a weird issue and something's crashing, don't assume, of course we know about it, because we don't have your unique combination of workloads and extensions and all that. So when people go through and do report a problem, then we get the inventory of like what happened, like what workloads you've got and what exactly caused and the call stack. And we can like definitely, like I know this from things that I'm doing with the VS for Mac team. And we've got things where people like have this interesting, unique combination of things happening. And then we get enough of them going through. I always tell them, go through report a problem. And then we can get the list and we go, this is a big enough thing where we need to prioritize it.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point.
Cynthia was asking, is there a way to dump the menu tree to detect it?
Oh, yes. Well, from your own machine, I guess. Well, you're like, but you don't have other. So, okay.
Like, can you iterate what's in the menu tree?
No. So, okay. No, hang on. You can use the DTE for it, but because all you need is the GUID and the ID and the integer. You don't need anything else. So yes, you can. You totally can. And I have code that does this. Now that I think.
Well, so, I mean, you could just brute force it, just iterate through all the GUIDs and in the world, just 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and, and just,
Yep.
I'm joking. Iterate GUIDs.
But I do have that. No, you can totally do that. And there's like
Shortcut exporter.
Oh, was that what I wanted to do?
That was the one below this. That looked like
that works fine. Is it no? Show the shortcut, not shortcut exporter. Those are two different things. They do similar things. Command before. Oh yeah, no, this is get the shortcut. No, this gets the shortcut. Oh, so maybe John, you were right. It's actually the export. So this one will do. Man, this is an old one, oldie but goodie. Good. It's probably back in the day where I threw everything in here. Print out, write commands, get commands. All right.
Wow.
There it is, in all its simple glory. For each command. There we go.
Well, wait, so it's the Git commands that was iterating and getting them, right?
The Git commands?
So I see write commands on the screen, but Git commands is the one where it's actually.
No, look at this. For each command.
Right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Git commands. Right. Oh no, you're right. Where's Git commands?
Way at the bottom, the last one on the list.
Oh, yeah. Yes, there it is. Yeah, so you just go through them, and there's like 1,000 that doesn't have a name, so filter on name. No, in your case, Cynthia, you don't want to do that because you want to look at any conflict, so you don't care about that. Pro tip. Should we do a tool? But Cynthia, you won't find a conflict unless someone else has the other extension that uses the same ID, which is not running your code here to figure out if they're duplicates. So I don't know if how you would ever actually do this. Yeah.
Let me see. There's one here. How would you proceed to disable certain of the dynamically added commands? So you could find that command by name for one, like by the text.
Well,
I mean, it's in the list, right? So you can.
Yeah, it's in the list exactly. So all the commands, after they've been dynamically created, they're now stored in our list here, our command list.
Mm-hmm.
So this is private static. You can make it public static, and so, or do nicer API without statics. I don't know. People have different tolerances for using static variables. I'm totally fine with it. So you could, let's say that you have a mechanism that runs whenever you build, like that will then figure out, hey, should some of these be disabled? And then from that code, you could just call in to the static list here, find the command you want to disable. Yeah, not necessarily find the command you want to disable, but then have a list where you say, okay, these should be enabled, these should be disabled. And then your before query status would then go through, iterate through them, and then apply if they should be enabled or disabled. Like simply by like doing,
Okay.
All right. So you could totally do that. That is, but it has to run. You can't, if you just set it, nothing will happen. It has to run during before query status, because that's what determines it. But it's actually worth trying out. What happens if you disable a command? Does it stay disabled till you, like once you come up here and look at it? Maybe. Ooh. If not, you have to like keep the list of enabled, disabled, and apply it in the before query steps.
So Cynthia was saying she's thinking of a second extension that the user could install that would check and save out the list as JSON, and then they could email it or whatever. So it seems like a customer support extension sort of thing or whatever. It's like, hey, got a problem, install this extension, and it'll find the conflict and it'll help.
Actually, that should be very easy to write an extension that all it does when you have it installed, you click a button and it will tell you whether or not you have a conflict or not. It just have to give you a Boolean. Like, do I have conflict? You click the button and it just replies with yes or no. And if it says yes, it will tell you the GUID and the ID. Can you look up further so you know the namespace or the package that it belongs to? I don't know. I'm not sure you can. But that would be cool if you could say, okay, it's this package, because then there's, it probably has this, the package might have a name similar to your extension name. And so it makes it easier to pinpoint.
So I have one question I just have to bring up just because it's fun. My daughter is watching and she is asking, which program language is this? So I tried to answer as best I could. This is C#.
This is C#, the best language ever. I agree. It is the best language ever. This is C#9.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. There's more depth to this.
Yeah, because we always do. What do we always do? We always do. Check this out. When you use the new project templates, we do Lang version 9. So if you use the regular Visual Studio project templates, you don't get language version 9 by default. And I was debating, should we also do what's it called? Is it nullable?
I just have to call out. I think that's okay, but can't you do Lang version preview? That is like I'm going for it mode.
What are the consequences?
I don't know.
That means that totally. Should we do that?
You can do preview. You can do latest. You can do latest major. Because then you could be using C#10.
That's what we need to do. Okay, people, what is the reason not to do that? I totally want to do that. What is the reason not to do it? Let's hear it.
Everyone talk Mads out of doing my terrible idea. But I'm just always like, newest dailies, can I get hourly builds? Let's do this.
Oh. Let's see here. So preview, and someone says Cynthia says latest. Okay, so latest, that just means in this case that's the latest stable, right? Which would be 9.0. But I want to use the latest and greatest. Like, there's no consequence to this, because unless that some of the previews have bugs that will ruin existing things. Like, let's say I'm using a C#9 concept, and now I'm like upgrading to C#10 beta or preview.
Mm-hmm.
Could there be regressions in that build that makes my C#9 all of a sudden not compile?
Yeah, I guess he could have impacts too, and if you're doing like automated builds.
Right.
But
okay, so Lang version 9. That's last year, right?
Right.
So, okay, so hang on. So Cynthia says latest. That just means 9. Hey, right? That just means 9. But I want to be on the latest and greatest. No, that's wrong. I want to be on the cutting edge.
Yeah.
So what is that?
So, and this goes to which people are asking. So which is this core CLR? Is this?
No, 4.7.2.
So this is native. So
yeah, 4.7.2. And even supported on that framework.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think
some of the things are, right?
I don't even know for .NET Framework which ones are supported.
But latest, I'm just going to change it. So I'm just going to try latest. Oh, that's the wrong. What about nullable? Should nullable be on by default? What do people think?
I think so. My understanding is for new projects, it's good to set nullable by default because then you're going to catch your stuff, right? You know what I mean? You'll catch null checks right away.
Yeah, but it's also like more strict. yeah, Lang version greatest. I like that.
Yeah. So Cynthia says latest is 7.3 on full framework.
But why can't I use 9 then?
I don't know.
What does latest beta then mean? It would be cool if it told me like what version of the compiler, or maybe if I
don't think latest beta is a thing.
What's the version of the C# compiler? Why doesn't it tell me in the output? No, nothing. Oh, one failed. Why did it fail? Oh, because latest beta is not.
Everyone's saying don't use nullable.
Okay.
That's sad.
So John says preview. All right, use that preview. I'm just going to try preview. Let's see if it wants to do that. So preview supported, and it succeeded, but it didn't really. How do I know what?
So yeah, preview is the latest available preview C# language version that your compiler supports. So
okay. So I just want to see. Show me the compiler version. Okay, I'm not learning much here.
yeah, we're just playing.
Yeah, just playing. All right. Well. Okay, so nullable, because the toolkit I use nullable. I guess it makes sense when you're doing like a library, but maybe it doesn't make sense for the consuming V6 project to has nullable.
This is interesting.
Oh, interesting. Like just when I compile.
Is that?
Oh, wow, look at that.
I don't know what happened there.
I have to run it.
Is that maybe in the?
Oh, it needs me to like era foo.
I was thinking that might be in the immediate window or in the you know how there's like $ exception. That was how I was reading it. But, oh. I don't know. Oh, error version. So hashtag error space version. Is that right? And then compile.
What? Whoa. Compile version 4.
Huh.
Oh, but I'm not. Hang on. I'm no longer. No, I am using preview. So what if we do latest?
But that's showing the .NET version, not the. That's not showing the language version.
That's right.
Yeah. It
says compiler version 4. Oh, here, language version latest 10.0. Whoop whoop.
Look at that.
All right. Hey, what's a 10.0 concept? Let's try it.
Oh yeah, all right. C#10. What's new?
What's new? Yeah.
I'm looking on. I was playing with this a little bit ago, but it's been a bit.
Well, global using. That's exactly what I need for tasks. This is so. Oh God. Where's the global using? Where's the global coming from?
Yeah.
Global using. So this one. Cool. Okay, people. This is the one we've been waiting for. This one right here.
Now, I thought you had to put it in a separate file.
You precede all other. So up top. No, that's it.
Oh, okay.
So we only have to declare this one once instead of doing it in every single class that we build. Yes.
Okay, see, my crazy idea is actually adding value.
Yeah. No, John, that was not crazy. That was fantastic. Preview. All right. People, this is fantastic. Yikes. She's profile? What is this? My company. Oh, this one doesn't even have that thing. Oh, we need the whole thing. There we go. So let's nuke the minimum tools version. That's just a sad relic of the past.
Yeah. What else? I guess the big thing in C# 10 is records. I don't know really.
No, records are in 9, and they and they won't compile if you target 472.
Okay.
Am I telling the truth? I feel like I tried it and it gave me like compiler and saying, "Oh, you are like targeting a lower version of whatevs." All right, that is exciting. I'm very excited. Okay.
So Olympus is saying, Olympus Tech, can you explain the global using, please?
Yeah. I don't know if I can. I can tell you what I think it is. I don't know if I can explain it. Object to C# preview version. Yeah. Let's sync. Yeah. Pull and push. Oh, but I didn't commit. So, where's the commit? Pushed. Hello. Oh, it's here. Anyway. So global usings, what it means is, that means that I don't have to repeat myself. So let's find if I have a task somewhere here. Task. See, this is the exact same using task equal. I have it up here. And now I actually get an error because it says the using alias task appeared previously in this namespace. I can now delete it. That means I can, in my package class, for instance, I can add more globals so that I don't have to do all these like Visual Studio and Shell and Toolkit. Oh,
you just put them at one time. Yeah.
That is, I'm so happy. So happy.
That cleans up a lot of code, huh?
We go in here. Now we should get Control KE, my command, KE support. System, you could argue, is always one, right? So global. So this might be the right set. Oh wow! It just John, we've been waiting our entire lives for this moment.
I feel like I've helped make your Friday a better Friday.
You know, it's funny. I was talking to Andrew Arnott. He's the guy that's been on Office Hours a couple of times. He's on the architecture team of Visual Studio. He's the guy that did all the threading in Visual Studio. He's the expert on threading, and he runs the analyzer, the SDK analyzer project. And it's and like we were talking about, like, man, when we can do the global task equals like global using task like this, because we're so tired of in extensions always to having to write this on every single C# file almost. So
so one other minor thing, and I think this is not quite as fancy, but you can make the namespace. You don't have to use braces in the namespace. It can be a single line declaration. So meaning you can just do, let me see the syntax.
Yeah, like now.
Yeah.
No, hang on.
So
not quite.
I think you need a semicolon after it.
You got to be kidding me.
So we're just going to upload.
This is going to be interesting, John, because for all these years we've kind of gotten used to that our classes or whatever like are like indented under. So now we're kind of, this like almost messes. Look at this. Our class, public static class, is now all the way at column 0.
Yeah.
That's almost kind of disturbing, but I love it. That's fantastic.
There's a lot of stuff going in to make like just remove noise, I guess.
Yeah.
You can control KD on the things too.
I do Control KE.
Okay.
Control KE is like running your code cleanup profile one. Control KE, and I have it set to have all these. I thought I had all these. So it does a full cleanup of everything according to my editor config rules and everything. So it's like the Uber format document. Not only does it format the document, it also applies all the code fixes on whatever based on the rules in my editor config.
Awesome.
Okay, everybody.
Here, so this regarding records, let me see. I have to parse this. I tried using records using Net Standard 2.0 and Lang version 9 for source generators. They seem to work as long as you have is external init class in some system namespace.
That's right. I forgot. That's exactly what it says. String prop, right, for property. Here we go. Yeah, exactly. So, is external init is not defined. I don't know if you can see that on the tooltip that comes up here.
Yeah.
Is external init, and I don't even know what that is. I'm like, I'm not even gonna understand what it is. But that would be cool. There. So what does that mean? Is that something we can add to the? Can we add that to the template so that external init is there so that people can use records if they want to?
What is that? So is that just like a marker method? You just have to call it, and you have the is external init class.
Yeah. Okay.
So, we're hearing just to add to assembly info.
Well, we have that in our template, so that'll be easy. So what was that?
Is external init. Link to, of course. James is not. There you go.
But how can I copy? Like if I click it, it gets on the screen.
Yeah. Unfortunately, here, I'll Google it up.
Just type it in. Monte Magno. So James C#9, and then was it Xamarin?
Yeah. There it is.
Okay. .NET Core, .NET Standard, Net Framework, all. Ooh, C# 7.3. Hang on.
Yeah, I don't know how this is working.
Version 9. You can also pick up. Yep. Okay. Yep. You can easily by adding the following code into any file. I like to. Oh, so he just adds it to it.
It's the code itself. It's not an attribute.
So the toolkit, we could just inject that from a toolkit so that it's automatically there, because we already inject a file for compilation into people's projects.
Yeah.
For setting a binding path. So now, no way. So now I can go in here and say foo.prop. Well, I can say, I can say new foo. Stop with that. New foo. And I can say, stop.
It really wants to help.
But look at that.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, we have the init, getter, setter, and init.
Yep. So another thing, I don't think you've got a ton of null checks and null things in here, but there's also some null checking stuff that's in C#10. But yeah. Wow.
Null parameter checking.
Yeah.
That's nice. Null parameter checking. That is global usings. Files code. Yeah, this is just nice. The namespace thing, man.
So there's the null parameter checking. Yeah.
Just
Yep.
You know, this is getting out of hand.
Right? I'm like, do I know this language?
Look at this. I mean, we already have the null forgiving thing for nullable, where you do a single bang, a single
Mhm.
exclamation mark. But I mean, if you don't know what that is, then you don't know it's a nullable only concept, and so now you have two.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a lot to keep up with.
it is. It's not just you. You have to think about like the stuff I do is all open source. I have to make sure it's super important to me that my code is readable above all else.
Yeah.
And the same goes for like I think most open source projects and the community toolkit. We just had a discussion the other day. Should we use var or explicit types?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I personally don't give a shit, really. But from a readability perspective, explicit types makes code easier to read, in my opinion. I think.
I feel the same. Somebody can look at 5 lines of code and know exactly what's being returned from a function or whatever. Yep. And so I tend to not use var as much.
I actually really always use var myself.
Yeah. I think part of it is some of my first jobs were in maintenance, and I was doing a lot of debugging code other people wrote, and I just really kind of skew towards making it really easy for people to read and debug my code. And, it's important. It depends. If it's something where you're like initializing something and you can look and you can see exactly, like you can tell exactly what it is, then var is fine. But if it's, I'm calling a function in another class and it's, it's doing something and it's setting it into a var, I'd rather just say what it is, Yeah.
So let's see here. Check this out. So here's how I write it. So I always write var.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it easier for me to like initialize new variables or to create new variables. I just write var. But then when I do Control KE, that shortcut again to apply my profile, because my editor config says, or my default says explicit types or whatever. Depending on, well, actually my default is use explicit types when it's not obvious. But I actually one-up that because I have, let's see here, under my installed extensions, I use one called, it's called Code Cleanup Unsafe. Okay. So now this is what I write, and I hit Control S. Oh, I probably have disabled. I disable it all the time because I have to do, I have to record videos. So now I just write var, and then when I save the file, boom. So I don't even have to think about like what is the right. I just always write var and let my editor config automatically do the thing that follows the rules. I don't have to think about it. So that's how I like it.
A few people are saying like you can just, if you use var, then your IDE will show it, and that's true. But if someone's reading your code on GitHub, or if somebody's doesn't, it's just I feel like I can just scan the code. I don't have to interact with my IDE. I can see exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So you said something I wasn't aware of, that in editor config you can set it to when it's non-obvious, because that's really cool. I thought it was just a yes or no.
Yeah, totally. So we can go in and say add. There used to be editor config, and here let's. Oh, you. I mean, I could also just open an existing one. Oh, actually, didn't I open a project? The extensibility template pack might have one. No. Well, they should have one. Where can I get theme switcher? So this is the actual extension that I wrote the other day. It has an editor config. And so now you get this, and we can search it, and we can say var. And is it a code style? Here, when variable type is a parent. When it's a parent, what it is. So does that make sense? So if you say, here, I'll just give a stupid
example. Var name equals quotes, and then, yeah.
right? This is like, okay, this is in this case, foo. It's obvious that this is a string.
Yeah.
So this one says use var instead of explicit type, right? So if I were to save that or Control KE, it removes that. So that's why I like it. So, and this is actually my default. So, and I used to have, I don't know if I do anymore, but in the root of my where I keep my GitHub repos and stuff, I have an editor config with my default. So that by default, if I don't have a editor config, it always follows sort of the same rules that I got. And so I always just write var, and Visual Studio does the right thing.
That sounds good.
I can highly recommend that. Where you go? This what did I call it? Code cleanup on safe.
Yeah,
it's a lifesaver.
Yep.
All right. Any last questions?
Let me see. I guess one more. People, oops, no, that's not it. This one here. What's the reasoning behind built-in types having a toggle for var?
I don't know. Maybe because they're more known, because they're framework specific. So if you're a .NET developer, you probably know everything to know about these types. Whereas your custom classes and whatnot, they're specific to your project, and so a new employee on your team or whatever does not know those. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like something like an int or a string or whatever, it can be more obvious. But if I'm populating a IEnumerable of ifunc of what, some random thing. So yeah.
Hey John, did you see this? For instance, when we searched and it just came up with 0, shouldn't it put like in parentheses up here the search number of search results? Like you should say code style 5.
Yeah.
So that because now I'm here, I'm like, okay, it doesn't say 0. It should.
I think that'd be, or at least when you hover or something. Yeah. Pull request.
It's not open source.
Yeah, I know.
we should get Mika on the phone, or someone write a suggestion ticket or something.
There you go. Okay, wait here. Okay, from Jan. If we're using Community Toolkit, we're using the packages GUID for the command GUID. So it combined with an integer will always be unique. So there's never a conflict, right? Did you that was deep thought.
Yeah. So let's just look here. Well, it's actually not toolkit so much. It's the template that does that. Yes, but you can make it. You don't have to make it like this. Right? You can. So yeah, you're right. So if you follow this pattern, you should be good. But what if someone uses the same GUID, not for their package, but for their group ID? So they basically they have somewhere in their code they have the same thing, but it's not their package class, right? So you can have as many of these as you want.
I worry about these GUIDs because they're working fine for us, but throughout the multiverse, there are other people that are getting GUID collisions.
But hang on, this will create. What will this create? Did we have this entire conversation for no apparent reason? Is Jan basically saying logically this can never happen? And is he right? You got me, Jan. I don't know. Okay.
Interesting.
That we should try that one day. We should do like a hacker episode where we have we try to break Visual Studio.
Create an infinite amount of extensions.
Yeah, that would be kind of fun to find new ways of because it will tell us what not to do, right? I mean, we would use our powers for good, not evil. Okay, any last ones?
Oh, I don't know. They seem to keep coming here. Are there issues deleting, removing commands and recreating, or should you recycle them?
I don't understand the question.
So I'm guessing, for instance, in your list, and I thought of that too. You had that one button, and then you updated it versus
like
you could remove and add or something,
the dynamic ones. Well, so technically, that's a good question. I've never tried that. Someone was asking me the other day, because what's interesting is that you can go through and say MCS. So our menu command service can say MCS remove command. Right, and then you can pass in commands.
Jan says they designed it that way.
Yeah.
He says yes in all caps.
All right, thank you, Jan. So you should. So I don't know if you can. It looks like you can remove them.
That was my lazy coding first thought, was just remove it and add a bunch of new ones.
Well, the problem is that how many IDs are you going to generate? Like, how big is your number? How many integers are you going to use? Like, if you do this nilly-willy and it's like in the hundreds or thousands of commands all of a sudden you have when Visual Studio has been open for like 3 days, which typically you do, then it's a bad idea, right? So yeah, just use with care, I guess.
All right.
Okay.
I think we covered.
Negative integer? No. Oh, maybe. Try it. If you can express it in hex. Cool. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. And
that was a lot of fun.
If you want to see the code for this extension, it is in the, as I said, it's the theme switcher. So go check that out, contribute to it if you want, or just read the code. It uses var in certain places, I think. Anyway. Oh, so will this show happen next week? No, it will not. It will not. And also, we're actually going to take a break, like a potentially month-long break. I should have probably started with this. I don't know how many people are left to hear this. So because we're expecting a baby, and so I'm going to go on paternity leave sometime in August, and I'm probably not going to do shows during that. So, and next week I have something else. So this might be the last show until September. It depends on a few things, but check Twitter and YouTube and for the next show. I can't tell you at this point in time when the next show will be. So there's that.
I think James and I will just co-op the show while you're out, and we're just gonna like hack our way through the world's worst extension. It'll do everything wrong, and it'll lock up Visual Studio.
Oh man, that would be good fun. That would be good fun.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you, John, and thank you everybody for your comments and for watching. See you next time.
Yeah, a lot of fun. All right. Bye, everyone.